Alright, 3CWDL water cooler air compressor WAMTech operation maintenance instruction February 2006. Section 15 and to 15 assembly. Note, the following procedures described in this process completely reassembling the entire compressor following an overhaul. The special individual component assembly procedure. Please relief directly to the section regarding the component interest. 5.1. Crankshaft installing the main bearings figure 3.4 with the oil pump, the drive gear 3 figure 3.3 of the crankshaft figure 4.1. Heating the bearings to a temperature of 190 degrees Fahrenheit. And oil bath or drive and all allowed to assembly cool before continuing. Warning: insulated gloves must be worn. Extreme care must be taken to prevent burns on the hands and face, other parts of the body of the hot bearing. 12.2 main bearing plate and crankshaft. Pressing the main bearing cup into the main bearing plate. Place the crankshaft in the vertical position with the face of the main bearing upward. Place the second main bearing cup into the pump on the side with the crankcase. Oil applying the lifting device of the crankshaft, lower the crankshaft and oil the driven gear in with the crankcase until the bearing seats and bore inside of the crankcase. Importance: in order to minimize the possibility of the damaging main bearings crankcase during the crankshaft reassembly, the crankshaft must remain in the vertical line and will respect the crankcase at all times. 15.2.5, placing the main bearing gasket in figure 3.17 onto the crankshaft figure 3.11. Bolt the main bearing into the plate crankshaft main bearing plate into the crankcase until using the 8 cap screws. Rotate the crankcase, assembly the normal upright position. Place the bearing plate gasket onto the crankshaft, installing 6 of each shims of figure 4.19 over the gasket. Place another bearing plate gasket over the shims. Bolt the main bearing plate figure 4.14 for the crankcase. Adjust the amount of the shims applied with the step 15.2.7. The step for the crankshaft axle play with between 8,000 inch to 13,000 inch for the crankcase must rotate freely before continuing with the assembly procedure. The oil introducing ring. Insert the oil rings onto the introducing ring. Insert the oil ring into the bearing plate. Tighten the set screws in the bearing plate. Install the oil introducing retaining ring. Oil seal. When the oil seal, care must be exercised and ensure the seal is not damaged with the keyway of the shoulder of the crankshaft. Prior to installing oil seal on the shaft, the seal should be stretched by installing the over 3.25 inch reassembly comb. This will help to prevent damage if they occur with the assembling over the keyways and shoulders. Alright, 15.4.2. After stretching the seal plate for the seal over the shaft by hand, move the seal into position at the boring plate bore with the outside diameter. Again, for the bearing plate bore, place the tool over the crankshaft and in contact with the oil seal. Tap with the tool until the seal is 1/8 inch below the outside of the machine surface of the bearing plate. 15.5. Oil pump. Installing the oil pump assembly into the crankshaft and using a new oil pump gasket. Make sure the helical gear meshes between the crankshaft and the oil pump. 15.6. Cylinder and piston assembly. A linear amount of the oil to all mating parts of the for assembly. Mounting oil pressure cylinder with the crankcase using 2-tube new oil pressure cylinder pressure 2-1 new bath plate as shown in figure 2. Then install the high pressure cylinder. Use the new pressure cylinder gasket. These rings installed with the figure 11 make the certain piston ring gaps not aligned. Though using the proper ring compressor tool, lower the piston connecting the rod assembly into the cylinder. Care must be taken lower the piston assembly into the cylinder is not to damage the piston ring cylinders of the crank pin of the crankshaft. See the figure 16 for the following the high pressure ring passer tools. The placing the connection rod cap the piston position with the cylinder, making certain the letters stenciled on the cap, the greaves with a stencil on the rod of the rod, the cap, the main machine that the machine set. Cover the crank pin with the oil film with oil before placing the connection rod with the cap, and then place and installing the new insert bearing set in the rod cap before assembling the crankshaft. Figure 15 shows the oil seal installation. This shows the low high pressure piston rings at your 1.5 and 5. Detail A piston ring 1.5. You see detail A and B, detail B, detail A and B. Important. The connection rod of the nut must be tightened in the corner with the following procedure: torque the cast nut every evenly 100 foot-pounds. The torque nut until the new cotter pin can be inserted through the slot when the nut is drilled in the hole in the bolt. Do not exceed 150 pounds torque. Observing the compressor crankshaft turn freely after the connection rods have been torqued and piston does not extend above the cylinder. 15.7 high pressure cylinder head. Pre-assembly high pressure cylinder head per figure 4 before installing onto the cylinder. Install the inlet and discharge valve on the heads using new copper valve gasket anti-seize compound to both sides of the gasket. Assembly the high pressure cylinder head on the cylinder. Use the new gasket connection under loading tube of the head complete with low pressure. 15.8 low pressure cylinder head. The pre-assembled low pressure cylinder head per figure 1 before installing it onto the cylinder. Install the inlet discharge valve of the head, then the new copper valve gasket. Apply anti-seize compound on both sides of the gasket. Assembling low pressure cylinder head onto the gasket under the new gasket. 15.9 side cover. Install 3/2 of the new side cover gaskets. Installing the plain side with the coverage using the 3/8 inch, 7/8 inch hex cap screw. Install the side cover with the oil filled below elbow dipstick oil level float gauge using 3/8 inch, 7/8 inch head cap screws and 3/8 inch, 2-inch head cap screws. Take the care not to bend oil level the float gauge on the compressor so equipped. 15.10 oil intercooler. Care must be taken when trying to install the intercooler assembly using the appropriate filling lifting device when installing the intercooler. Install the new flange gasket between the low pressure cylinder head intercooler. Finger tighten the 1/2 inch 1 by 1 1/8 inch hex screws. Install the intercooler assembly via the high pressure head connector with the new flange gasket and the 1/2 and 1 1/8 inch head screws. Tighten the finger. Torque all connections at 50 pounds of foot-pounds. Begin with the high-pressure head connector working toward the low-pressure elbows. Install the relief valve into the tapped holes in the center of the interchanger discharge manifold. Or 16.0 wear and testing. Compressor which have been reconditioned undergo major reports to cover the preceding instruction must be subject to reasonable wear and period. Compressor after being properly completed, some of the Wabtec Corporation approved the air inlet filters with the crankcase filled with appropriate lubrication oil with the anticipated operation conditions. See figure 8.2 should be placed in suitable test standing. The test standing should be equipped with the motor sufficient horsepower. See general specification table 2, preferably the variable speed type. The compressor can be mechanically coupled. During the entire braking period, and the air filters must be in position to prevent damage due to the entrance of the foreign particles with the compressor arranged with the test stand. The connection with the compressor discharge port, the pressure reservoir for the globe valve open with the 17/64 of an inch orifice disc and the orifice holder operate with the compressor according to the wear in the schedule in table 3. Alright, wear and schedule. Reference of the wear and schedule table 3 with the oil pressure should be checked with the frequent intervals during the test run. Must never be less than 15 psi gauge. At any of the above test speeds, install the test gauge in the tap hole provided with the oil relief valve. Remove the test gauge complete from the test place from the proper pipe with the plug. If any parts of such position, piston, cylinder rings, wrists, and pins, connection rods, bearings are replaced, and all tests must be repeated. Or 17.0 compressor capacity test. After the compressor is completely reassembled, it must be operated again with a max speed pressure period of not less than 1/2 an hour against a 100 psi gauge to remain at normal operation temperature. The capacity test should be made in accordance with the arrangement testing shown in Wabtec Corporation Test Specification T4050D. Installation and alignment with the compressor with a diesel engine. Installation of new compressor on being installed with the overhauling. It requires careful consideration regarding proper alignment with the diesel engine with direct mechanical drive involved. Regardless of the effort being made with the proper repairing building compressor with the good workmanship implied, it can be expected to give satisfactory, reasonable long service if not properly aligned or coupled with the diesel engine drive shaft upon a proper lifting mechanism capable of handling minimum of 3,000 pounds during installation. Alignment should be checked with the dial indicated in order to proper coupling. For detailed procedure installation, valves, values, install the coupling reference should be made in the locomotive's builder instruction manual for the compressor drive system. Alright, 19.0 preparation compressor for the dead storage. To prepare the compressor for the dead storage, the following procedure is recommended. Alright, this shows the compressor capacity test. From the compressor discharge to 2 inches in the air pressure part and air pressure gauge the drain that has a drain gauge, drain cock, 24-inch maximum between the global valve and the air compressor, the air tank. The E7 safety valve setting spring is on that is on the compressor line, and with an orifice holder and a globe valve. All right, your low pressure cylinder diameter length 7.8795, maximum length 11.340, minimum high pressure cylinder 5.7545, maximum length 11.715, minimum low pressure piston diameter 7.8665, minimum compressor ring groove width 19 hundredths of a maximum inch, oil control ring groove 22,531 thousandths of an inch, wrist pinion bushing 1,301.380, 1.3848 minimum, wrist pinion diameter minimum 1.3820, high piston travel 5.7425, minimum compressor ring oil groove width 0.175, 0.1275, maximum oil control ring groove width 0.2529, maximum wrist pin diameter 1.498, minimum oil control ring bore diameter 3.253, maximum bearing end plate bore diameter 6.378, maximum crankshaft mains bearing journal 3.375 minimum, crank pin diameter 3.496 minimum, oil leaf valve bore diameter 1.189 maximum, oil leaf plunger diameter 1.85 minimum, crankcase bore diameter 6.378 maximum. Rated speed 1050 RPMs, 260 to 96 CFMs, displacement rate speed. Low pressure cylinder number to diameter 2 at 7.88 inches. High pressure cylinder number to diameter 1 at 5.75 inches. Number compression rings piston travel 3. Number oil rings per piston 1. Stroke 5. Number main bearings 2. Type of the main bearings tapered. Crank pin journal lubrication pressure. Wrist pin lubrication pressure. Oil pump type gear driven. Oil capacity quarts, 42 quarts, compressor BHP, maximum rated speed at 140 psi gauge, 68, cooling water, oil pressure 15 psi gauge, valve type, disc spring loaded dry weight, 1,590 pounds. All right, wear and schedule 500 RPMs, atmosphere 500 atmosphere time 1.5 hours, 140 psi. Soap flange and intercooler is 1,000 RPMs at 1.5 hours, 140 to 125 psi. Checking to see if the compressor loads are unloaded. 1,000 RPMs at 1 hour and 1/2, 140 psi. Continuous duty volumetric efficiency test conducted in the last half hour. Warning: stated minimum, maximum, or not to be exceeded. Compressor damage to unprincipled and personal injury may result. All right, your anti-removal piston roller bearings. Driving tool, and that completes the reading for the second part. That was the last of your operational maintenance instruction 3 CWDL or water cool air compressor type.